What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Pride, a living room series, a show where we celebrate queerness. Today we have a very special guest. Please help me welcome CQ.
Is it weird to clap for myself?
No, it's not. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and where are you spending your day today? Where are you?
I am Christina Quintana, or CQ. I go by CQ, and I am right now on my in-laws' porch in Michigan. I am a writer across genre. I mostly am known as a playwright. I've written for TV, I've written prose and poetry, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Growing up in the Puerto Rican culture, which is a little conservative, it has all of these rules. Art gave me a lot of healing. I found a lot of answers. I found a lot about myself. It's literally a way to deal with everything that I was going through when I was discovering that I liked women. So I was wondering if you feel like you've been able to find answers to find yourself and to even have a cathartic experience through your art.
Absolutely. I mean, I can even remember, my family, both of my parents are Cuban. Well, my father, unfortunately, is no longer with us, but I can actually remember my father even saying to me, like, when are you going to stop writing about women's sexuality? It's just always been there because it's always been a part of me. And really, everything I write is queer. It has given me so much healing. The first artistic community that really accepted and embraced me was the queer community. I remember like when I got into the Lambda Literary Retreat in fiction and just sitting in a room full of artists, and we were all so relieved to just be able to not have to have anybody question why our stories were queer and why what we were writing was queer. Every community sort of gets put in a box so often, and it's such a relief to just be like, I'm just writing the stories that I want to write. I've heard from so many people that I really admire that they weren't sort of able to really be successful as artists until they were able to be true to themselves in terms of their writing. And I think I'm really grateful because it has really helped me. And I think at times it's made me really squeamish and uncomfortable and had to sort of battle my own sort of issues of shame and things that I, like so many of us, have sort of been raised with. As a writer, I really want to use the mantra, you are not alone. And I really think that is so important to me, to create community and create a space for healing. And I think that queer artists, like, we need that. I mean, we need that just like anyone. I think any human being needs that. So I think my work, my writing is a space for healing for me as much as for anyone else.
Mm-hmm. What is the most gratifying experience you've had being a part of the queer community?
I think this is funny. This is going to take it back. This is going to take it back to you, Claudia.
What?
I remember after, and this is like, it's not just this specific instance, but things like this, which is when you came up to me after seeing Scissoring and saying how much it meant to you and what it meant to you to see a Latina on stage, a queer Latina on stage. And those conversations, like so many times when I've had, people contact me or come up to me after a show and say, like, I haven't been seen like this. And it was so good to see myself in this role or in this production or just like in reading this play. It just means so much to me. Writing is about community. There's this great quote from Alan Bennett's History Boys where he talks about when you're reading something and it feels like a hand reaches out to you and is touching yours. And I think about it all the time because to me, it's like, that's why we write, to reach other people, for them to see themselves, to experience that feeling of, wow, like somebody else has had that feeling. Somebody else knows what it's like to experience this. I do realize that, like, I write about queer communities of color, and that's not always the most publishable, producible thing, but I'm not going to stop doing it,
Anytime that I see material like that where I can see myself, it's just important, which is, again, like, also a reason why I'm doing this show is for, like, people who are still even struggling with who they are and kind of finding it hard to see that there are other people who are experiencing those things. Because even though I'm doing this show, I am so uncomfortable being myself a lot of the time.
It still can be really difficult for people to, to be okay with being queer in whatever capacity that is,
Now we're going to make our way into the last segment of the show. The last guest of my show, Carlos Nogueras, asked you a question. After you answer, you'll get the chance to ask the question that my next guest will answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Carlos Nogueras asked you,
Tienes que darle un consejo al tú de hace 10 años atrás, ¿qué le dirías?
You know, it's so funny. It's such a great moment to think about because my 10-year-old self was just starting. We had moved and my parents enrolled me in this Catholic school, and I looked basically the way I do now. I looked like a little boy, except for obviously like I hadn't developed, so even more so. And I remember sort of entering the school and literally people thinking that I was a little boy in a skirt. And I think during that time there, I really, felt this need that I needed to kind of like over time, like especially going into high school, that I needed to be more feminine because that was like what I was supposed to do and what needed to happen, even though it really wasn't who I was. And so I think if I could go back in time, and I don't know whether I would believe myself, but I think I would say, like, you are so badass the way that you are. And I remember the first time, that was about the age where my sister's boyfriend called me a lesbian, and I didn't even know what that word meant. And I would say, it's a great thing. You are great just the way you are, in your cargo shorts and your button-up shirt and your crew cut in the back, working on your jump shot, even though you're 5 foot nothing, or less than that at that point. I really think I would say, like, you maybe can't see it now, but this is what makes you great,
Before we end the show, CQ has a poem that we want to share. If you could please just introduce us to the artist and what they focus on and all of that.
We're going to both read, which I'm excited about. We're going to read together. Claudia and I are going to read together this poem called Legendary, which is part of a series of poems by Nicole Seeley, who is an Afro-Latinx artist. And she's an amazing poet. Her collection, Ordinary Beast, I recommend it to everyone. In this current moment, I just think it's so important that we lift up, our Black brothers and sisters, and especially Afro-Latinx brothers and sisters who are so often overlooked for their identities. And so we're going to read this poem called Legendary, and I'm going to start the first half. Legendary, Nicole Seeley. You want me to say who I am and all of that? Pepper LaBeija. What girl gives up an opportunity to talk about herself? Not I. Not today. I won't bore you with my biography. Just a few highlights from my resume. I don't aspire. I'm whom one aspires to. The most frequently asked question isn't WWJD. It's what would Pepper LaBeija do?
Really, the question should be, what hasn't she done? I've been walking now 2 decades and got more grand prizes than all the rest. I hate to brag, but I am one main parade. Jehovah in drag, the church in a dress. Outside these walls, I may be irrelevant, but here I am the Old and the New Testament.
Yes, and I should also mention, I didn't mention it, but Pepper LaBeija is a drag queen from the House of LaBeija, which was like it's a legendary house from the ball scene.
Thank you so much for being here. This was really special. Give a round of applause.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And there you had it, another wonderful episode of Pride, a living room series. I will see you. When is the next episode? I will see you Wednesday. And remember, stay queer, stay weird. Have a good one.